The question continues to be asked, what is this place? Where are we when we arrive at the location beyond Satchitananda, beyond the movement of existence? Rumi calls it the ground of unknowing, where the rose always blooms. Why would it be called a ground? So there's a reminder of several samurai stories, and remembering that each element of the stories is an aspect of our self. Let's see what arises when we mix the chemistry of these two stories together. The first is that story about the warlord who sent a minor servant to a distant province on an errand. But while he was there, he unwittingly insulted one of the officials of that province. And this official was a very arrogant and vindictive man. So, because there was a protocol involved, the servant had to be allowed to return to his own lord to complete the errand that he'd been sent on. But because of that agreement between these provinces, he would be sent back to face court the charges and that which followed from those charges. So when the minor servant returned to his warlord, the warlord said to him, "You know, when you return to this province, because of the nature of the official that you've insulted, to all intents and purposes, you're already a dead man." "But," said the warlord, "you know, if you care to, you can die with honor and dignity. All you have to do is challenge me to a duel." And the servant said, "But Lord, I've never had a sword in my hand. I do not know the ways of combat." And the warlord said, "Never mind." But you know, the warlord had in his mind the fact that even though he had had lots of practice in the ways of combat, in fact he was a leading swordsman, he had never fought someone who ostensibly was already a dead man. So he said to the minor servant, "I'm your warlord, and you have to obey me. We will fight a duel." So with that, they went out into the arena, and a sword was placed in the hands of the minor servant. And to the great surprise of the warlord, even though he took his stance, he was, with every move he made, at a disadvantage. It seemed that this minor servant, even though he'd never had a sword in his hands before, had the upper hand on the warlord, until the warlord was back backed against the perimeter of the arena and had no choice but to raise his sword and cleave his servant in two. Afterwards, the warlord was sitting with a group of other samurais, and they were discussing this, and various questions were asked of the warlord. Did you feint and thrust when the servant was before you? And the warlords said yes, but still he had me at an advantage. And what about when you were backed against the wall? Did you seek an opening in which you could kill him? No, said the warlord. There was no advantage nor opportunity. I merely followed my instinct, which brought my sword above my head and cleaved him in two. And the second story is that story of the tea master, who was in the servant of that great Shogun Takyamuni, stories of whom have been told before. But Takyamuni was going to a distant province, and he insisted that his tea master go with him. Now the tea master said, but master, you usually take one of your leading samurais with you. I'm only a tea master. This is not protocol. But Takyamuni, the shogun, insisted, and he said, never mind, we're going to dress you as a samurai, and then we'll fulfill the protocols that are required. So, in their visit to this other province, the tea master, dressed as a samurai, had occasion to undertake an errand for his shogun. And while he was out in the streets of this foreign place, where it so happened that there were roaming the streets a great number of rogue swordsmen who had no master. It was a time when the samurais were in decline, so a lot of them found themselves out of a job. So as our tea master, dressed as a samurai, was fulfilling the errand, he happened to turn a corner and inadvertently bump in to one of these rogue samurais. The rogue samurai immediately challenged our tea master. Who are you? Where do you come from? What lineage, what swordsmanship school have you come from? I challenge you to a duel. You disturbed me. Well, the tea master was at a loss. What could he do? He knew not the ways of the sword. How should he react? But with a thought in the moment, he said to the rogue samurai, wait, this is not the time and the place for a duel. Why don't we meet at a certain place this evening as the sun is going down? There I will meet you and duel with you. Well, what could the rogue samurai do but agree to this? And then the tea master, remembering that on his walk he had passed a sign which said, "Master swordsman available to teach the way of the sword." So he made his way back to where the sign was located, and he entered into this school where he was confronted with the swordsmaster teacher. And he explained himself. "I'm not a samurai, even though I'm dressed as a samurai. I'm really a tea master. But I know I'm going to die this evening. So I want you to teach me how to die with honor." So the teacher, swordmaster, said, "Well, I've never been requested to teach in this way before. But you're a tea master. First there is the ritual that we must undertake, the protocol that we must follow. I'm a master and you're a master. Show me your mastership." So the tea master requested that the makings of tea be brought. And when they were, just like always, a tea ceremony, he adjusted himself. He prepared the accoutrement of the tea. In this place, in this state, where absolute absorption in the act of the tea ceremony. And when the tea ceremony was over, the master swordsman said to the tea master, "I need to teach you nothing. When you stand in front of that rogue samurai, be in the place that you are when you make the tea. But I will show you the rituals that precede the act of dueling." And so he did. And the tea master went off to the designated place because it was now time for the sun to set. And when the rogue samurai saw the tea master, he thought to himself, "This is not the same man who I met on the street." But, as was the custom, the samurai swordsman prepared himself, getting himself in the stance, taking out his sword. And the tea master, in his samurai dress, did what the swordmaster taught him. He adjusted his sleeves. He made his sash in place. And then he took out his sword, raised it above his head, and fixing his gaze on the rogue swordsman, he waited. But the rogue swordsman could see that this man was invincible. And in that instant, he placed his sword back in its sheath, bowed low to the tea master, apologized, and turned and went on his way. What is this place, this state? And what is the similarity and or the difference between these two stories? Where are we? What is this place? The ground of unknowing, where the rose always blooms. What is this ground?
When you're at the point of death, all things leave you, ideas, thoughts, everything. And all that's left is that universal energy which just flows through you, and you just react as it says.
Yes. Isn't it so? Isn't it so? The ground of unknowing. What is this ground that's just been described by, how would we describe it? How would we express it? Then, when someone came to Divine Mother with some problem that was troubling them, or some welling up of some emotion, anger, or whatever it was, sometimes she would say to them, just pretend you're dead. But looking at this question, what is this that we can recognize in this place? We don't have to pretend. Why is it that said, die while you're alive and be absolutely dead? Then all that you do will be good. What is it about this place?
Because you're not getting caught in any emotion if you're dead.
That's right.
So everything just just flows along because you're not getting not judging or expecting or.
So what's the ground then? Couldn't we say, I'm already dead? Right? I'm already dead. It's done. Wouldn't you say so? What was that?
Your ground is the foundation you operate from.
That's right. The ground.
In the story where the Lord was going to kill the servant, the servant had the upper hand because he was already in that place.
He was already in the place.
But when the Lord was backing against the wall and he was going to die, then he was able to summon that place and kill the servant.
Exactly. Exactly.
He's thinking about something which causes fear,
Yes.
rather than just going beyond it.
Yeah.
Considering you've had it already. So if you're dead, there's no fear about it.
There's no fear. Yes.
And the samurais apparently used to, when they woke up, they would have something on the bedside table and they'd turn it over.
Yes.
And then they'd go about their day. And if they had to fight, they'd fight like they were already dead.
Okay.
And then if they actually, when they went back to bed, they would turn this thing over, and that was their dead.
Uh-huh.
And then if they wake up the next morning, they turn it over, they've got another day.
Okay. All right. Huh?
Yeah.
The symbolism of the